London was 80% white British in 1991. It is probably around 30% white British today. So if you have seen that level of change in the city in which you live, think about this as well. 3/4 of the people who live in this country today are over the age of 35. So all of this has happened within the lifetime of one generation, effectively. That is a level of change that is A, completely unprecedented, B, extremely transformative, whether you like it or not, good or bad, whatever you may think. You might think, oh, you know, the amount of different kinds of food has got better. It's true, objectively. But it's also true, objectively, that entire swathes of this city are no longer inhabited by the people who used to live here. Again, this is an objective fact. You can like it, you can dislike it, but that is something that has happened. This is
Okay, so for now, Konstantin is just trying to lay groundwork for facts that they can agree on. Destiny, is it a fact that even if the food's gotten better or this or that society has been transformative or has been transformed due to the fact that we have all of this migration coming in? So one, it's transformative. We need to agree that that's a fact, right? And two, there seems to be at least a lot of it, or a lot more of it than there was before. So can we at least agree to the groundwork here? Which I think that that's fine to do.
true of London, it's true of Manchester, it's true of Birmingham, and it's true of several other smaller cities in this country. By 2060, according to current projections, white British people will become a minority in this country. 2060 is the next 35 years, right? And that's the entire kind of demographic transformation. These are facts. Forget about people's opinions, my opinion, your opinion. In terms of illegal immigration, there are now almost 1 million, we don't know exactly because it's hard to measure, but we have almost 1 million illegal immigrants in Britain today, which for a population of 70 million is quite a lot. We currently spend 14 million pounds a day I'm not talking about the cost to the taxpayer of having 1 million illegal immigrants here. I'm talking about how much we spend to accommodate them and all other things. Now, 14 million, is that a lot per day? It's quite a lot. But also this is happening at an unprecedented rate. More people come to Britain illegally today than came legally when I came here in 1996. I'll say that again. More people come here illegally every year than came here in 1996 when I came here. That's the level of change when it comes to illegal immigration, and the cost of it, 14 million pounds a day, is increased by a factor of 10 in the last 10 years alone.
So here, Konstantin is still just laying the groundwork for agreement. He hasn't made a claim about whether this is good. He hasn't made a claim about whether it's bad. He hasn't made any claims like that. He's only trying to see if they can agree that these are the facts themselves.
It's 1,000% more than what it was. Those are the facts about immigration. So when we talk about immigration and whether it's compatible with national identity, it depends what we mean. If we're talking about 20, 30, 40,000 people a year, highly selective from compatible cultures as it used to be, perfectly compatible, and in fact, I think probably quite desirable. If we're talking about what we've seen over the last 30 years, I don't think it's compatible with any sort of national identity at all. Now, I've been talking for a long time, so we can get to national identity after you've addressed that.
Sure. So I guess the thing that is a little bit strange to me about the immigration question is sometimes I'll hear a bunch of descriptions laid out, and I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do with them. There's often...
Well, first, you should decide if these are factual statements or not. I mean, that would be the good place to start. Do you agree that what Konstantin, is that his name? Konstantin? Yeah, Kissen? I don't know. Konstantin. Are the facts he laid out correct or not?
Oftentimes a lack of a prescriptive statement. It seems like there's a little bit of fear of committing to any particular idea about what an ideal immigrant would look like.
He doesn't need to make a prescriptive statement yet. All he needs you to do first is agree to the facts before we move into that part of things.
And then it feels like we're sometimes also lumping a ton of immigrants together. So for instance, when we say there have been so many more immigrants that have come here in the past 30, 35 years, but then we also mention like illegal immigrants or asylum seekers, these are all different groups of people. So I don't know why.
I separated them out. I talked about legal immigration and illegal immigration, right?
I understand, but so the prompt has to do with basically can a country's culture, whatever, survive mass migration? Illegal immigrants are not mass migrating here. The mass migration...
They are. So I just told you more illegal immigrants come here every year now than legal immigrants came here 30 years ago.
I understand that, but if you
So
look
they
at
are
the,
mass migrating.
so then are the legal ones mass migrating, or what? Is it just?
The legal immigrants are also mass migrating. It's possible for them
But
both
it's
to be
like
mass
10 to
migrating.
1, right? So
Yes.
so comparing the
Okay. Well, right here, Konstantin has the advantage. So he pointed out to Destiny that there's no logical contradiction to make the claim that both are engaged in mass migration. Illegal immigrants are mass migrating. So what Destiny was trying to do is say, well, how can you call that mass migration? And this is what he's still trying to argue. If it's like 10 to 1 or 20 to 1, legal immigrants. Konstantin's rebuttal here is no. Okay. They're both mass migrating. So that if he's wise, that could put Destiny on his back foot because he was obviously not prepared for that.
two is it seems like we're talking about different kinds of, we're probably talking about different kinds of immigrants. We talk about legal versus illegal.
We're talking about both, yeah.
Well, no.
I'm talking about both.
Destiny wants to get into, I can see where he's going here. He's trying to get into a basic NTT argument and name the trade argument. So he wants for Konstantin not to say illegal and legal immigrants, but rather to give criteria for immigrant type that you want. What's the immigrant type that we want? This assumes that you want immigrants, though. This is assuming it already. And so the thing is like you could do the same exercise with neighbor type. What type of neighbor do you want? You know what I mean? Or something like this. And you can endlessly reduce it until it becomes reductio and then it becomes worthless.
You don't see any difference between a legal immigrant versus an illegal immigrant?
Well, of course I do.
Okay.
But they are both mass migrating here. They're both coming here in unprecedented numbers.
Everything definitionally is unprecedented as you move forward in years. That's we have.
Everything definitionally is unprecedented. Everything, well, that's true, I guess. Everything the chat said today is unprecedented. Everything I'm about to say is unprecedented. There's no precedent for it. This stream is unprecedented. You're actually looking at history in the making right now, ladies and gentlemen, an unprecedented stream. Right? Everything is unprecedented. Just point out then what is the use for this word? What is it trying to point out? What is it trying to point out then?
An unprecedented amount of technology, an unprecedented amount of energy generation, an unprecedented amount of
I think you might be confused about the meaning of the word unprecedented.
Unprecedented is, and it hasn't happened at that level before. Yeah.
Right. So if we have immigration of 20,000 people a year, that wouldn't be unprecedented.
Well, unprecedented doesn't just mean hasn't happened at that level before, right? There's other meaning to it too. But in this particular case, he just got done saying, well, everything's unprecedented.
Because we had that before.
Yeah, but the population is growing of the country, the population of the rest of the planet is growing, the economy is growing, there's a whole bunch of other factors at play. It's not like all else equal, there's just 10 million people that have shown up. Like there's other factors at play at all points in time as well. So
yes,
it's a bit reductive to say like, well, we have an unprecedented wave of whatever. There's unprecedented things happening definitionally every year forward into the future we go.
So what? That's not an argument. That's actually a completely meaningless statement. Well, there's lots of unprecedented things that happen. So what does it have to do with what we're talking about? What does it have to do with anything? That has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't matter how many unprecedented things are also happening along with this unprecedented thing. Is it a fact that this is an unprecedented event or not?
Oh,
no, that's
yes.
not true.
What's the thing that's been frozen in time?
I just explained it to you.
Yes, you laid out a bunch of numbers, and I just explained why they're contextless and meaningless. But now I'm asking, what is the thing that's unprecedented?
Look,
or I'm sorry, what would be a thing that is not changing in the past 30 years? Like if you had to look at something.
One of the most amazing things of arguing with anybody from your position is the extent to which they refuse to understand what words mean. I just explained to you repeatedly what unprecedented means. It means that it hasn't happened before. There have been times in the history of this country when its immigration was in the tens of thousands, and for us to go back to that would not be going back would not be going forward to something unprecedented. It would be returning to something that we used to do.
Sure.
Right?
And my question
and so
is,
what has happened in the last 30
I understand
years
what's happened. You've explained it
is
several
unprecedented.
times. Is there anything in U.S. culture, in British culture, that has remained the same for the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, for the past 100 years, that doesn't have an unprecedented thing happening constantly?
Absolutely. I mean, that is what...
That was a trap. That was a trap and completely irrelevant. And it looks like Konstantin is going to fall into that trap. There's actually no reason to give a response to that. You could just even grant it, and it's totally irrelevant. Yeah, sure. Everything changes. Okay, great. Can we get back to the debate now?
culture is. It was what is preserved over time.
How?
A culture is what people do without having been told to do so by a law.
Can you? Yeah, but what is an example of a culture that is unchanging?
How much have you traveled around the world?
Probably more than you.
Probably not, actually.
Okay. So then you should be able to very easily answer. Well, here's an example of a culture that exists.
Well, every time I try and
answering what a culture is as difficult as answering the question of what justice is. Right? But pretending that cultures don't exist simply because a person struggles to give you an adequate definition of what one is again back to Konstantin's point of we're just going to pretend that this word means nothing. I suspect Destiny conceded his position long ago. He knows he's wrong, but persists due to ego. It's a source of his popularity and livelihood. Doubt it. I think he believes everything he's saying here.
To your question, you keep talking over
Well, it's
me.
because when you answer, you ramble and say irrelevant things. So my question is
How can I ramble in half
He hasn't been rambling at all.
a sentence?
And he hasn't been saying anything irrelevant.
You've been saying plenty of sentences. Do you think the speaking time up to this point is even, or do you think you've spoken more than me?
I have spoken more than you.
Well, you've asked him questions and you want him to lay a groundwork.
But I haven't
Exactly. So then you've
interrupted
had an
you.
opportunity to speak. You're just not answering my question. So my question is very simple. What's a culture that you feel has been unchanged for the past 50 years? Or what is an example of cultural preservation? I feel like cultures are evolving all the time. It's definitionally a part of culture.
Of course. Cultures are...
Let me ask you a question. I don't actually know the answer to this. Have any, like I would say something like, I don't know, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. Just something like that. Hasn't changed. Right? An idea of something which is unchanging or has been unchanging in culture. Like just hit them with something like that. But I don't even know what the point is because it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Even if you grant that everything in culture changes, has nothing to do with whether or not mass migration is problematic or what the facts of it even are. Our cult leader eating pineapple pizza live at the end of the stream is unprecedented. That's true.
evolving all the time. But if you were to be plonked in 1970s Afghanistan and 1990s Afghanistan and 2010s Afghanistan and 1950s Britain, 1970s Britain and 2010s Britain, there would be common themes that run through both of those places so that you would instantly recognize, I am in Afghanistan, I am in Britain. Would you accept that?
I agree that different cultures are different, yes.
Right, well done. Good. So we've got there then.
Well, you just established that there are, this is like saying
Different
that
cultures are different, which means that
that
they
wasn't
have
the
something
question.
about them
Yes. And
that makes them different.
If
right?
you have a brother, both of you will be different for your entire lives. But
But
that
there
doesn't
would
mean,
be a family culture that you have that's different to other families.
But you wouldn't be the same as you were when you were 10 years old.
No,
you
you
would grow
wouldn't.
and change,
Of
right?
course.
So when you talk about
But
preserving
you're still the same
culture,
person, right?
What?
You're still the same person.
Yeah, but you're dramatically changed.
But you're still the same.
No. Are you the same as you were 10?
What? What do you mean, no? Are you a different person? Does that mean that, like, if you did a crime 10 years ago, I can't arrest you because I'm arresting a different person? That's fucking stupid. That doesn't make any sense. Konstantin's right here. He's like, well, wait, what are you talking about? Yes, I've changed since this time, but I'm still the same person. Destiny's like, no, you're not the same person. It's like, well, then how can you go back in time and arrest people for crimes that they committed? That was a different person, right? That's a totally different person who's not you.
10 or 15 years ago? What do you mean by that? The same. You're not
What do you mean by that? The same? Wait, you murdered somebody 10 or 15 years ago? We can't arrest you. You're not the same. been watching. So, I mean, what are you getting arrested for? That was old you. You're not even the same anymore.
Changed, right?
Are you pretending to be a moron, or are you actually being one?
So your claim was
I mean, look, that's actually a fair thing to say right here because that was a moronic statement. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. Makes zero sense at all. None. He's like, oh, no, you're not the same. You're not the, well, I mean, you must be the same. Or why is it that we treat present you for the things that past you did?
that we need to preserve culture because cultures aren't supposed to change.
No, that's not my claim.
Okay, then
He never claimed that. For some reason, Destiny keeps on asking him to name something in culture which is unchanging. And then he says, you just got done claiming that cultures don't change, but he never actually said that. Ever.
help me understand. So
I will,
because
if you
because
stop
if you don't
interrupting me.
remember, this whole topic started with I'm curious, what is a thing that is precedented? What's the thing that happens continuously through all of history that isn't changing? And then you pointed to the fact that Afghanistan and the United Kingdom are different cultures. Like that's something that I would reject.
No, I didn't. I was just explaining to you what cultures are, which are the cultural differences between groups of people that remain fairly constant over time, despite changing somewhat, as all cultures do.
Your definition of culture is the difference between your culture and another
No,
culture?
I gave you my definition.
You just said. You said it was the
I came
differences
here-
between cultures that change over time that define one culture against another one.
Okay, let's reset. And
Okay.
you talk for a bit, and then I talk for a bit, and then you talk for a bit.
Well, no,
and
because I
talk
noticed
for a
that this is how it feels like a lot of these types of people, the centrists, the reformers, the MAGA, whatever, is you paint with such broad brushstrokes that by the end of a sentence, I feel like you haven't really said much at all. And I'm just kind of curious why, when you guys speak about things like the preservation of culture, I don't really hear you allude to anything concrete. Or when you talk about wanting to preserve something, you talk about how something has changed. I don't necessarily hear, like, what are the things that are changing that you don't like. You'll point to things like crimes, but I mean, like, crimes are illegal. Obviously, they shouldn't be happening. I just don't really hear anything concrete ever, and it's very unsatisfying to listen to a bunch of people kind of ramble on and on and on without ever having a clear point about what they're talking about. So,
Okay, let's go into hyper specifics. How much of the nation is now speaking English versus not speaking English? How much of the culture has changed towards Spanish speaking individuals? How, you know what I mean? Like the list goes on and on and on, actually, of how many actual changes inside of culture have happened. Then Destiny would just pivot from there and be like, yeah, but cultures change. It has nothing to do with anything, though. And I'm not saying anything, it'll get read. True. Biologically, your cells die off and replace themselves every 7 years. Different person. You're going to do the ship of, what is it, ship of Theseus? I guess as long as I wait 7 years, I can't be prosecuted for any crimes. I was a whole different person.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out for British or American culture, what are these things that you feel are common? Maybe you go back 30, 40, 50 years that were common across the whole country that you feel are changing in a way that they never changed in the past.
Okay, done.
The easy way to answer this would be to point out the topic at hand. So when Destiny says, what are the things that were common among British culture that aren't common now? I would just say mass migration, stupid. That's the thing. Here's the thing. The thing in question that we're debating right now is the thing it was common 30, 40 years ago to not have it. And now it's common 30, 40 years later to have it. The very thing we're discussing.
Are you going to answer that question? He's not going to answer the question. Go ahead.
I've attempted to answer your question many times, and I'll do so again. However, first of all, am I going to be okay to speak now for a bit? Is that going to happen?
Sure. Can you repeat my question first so I know what you're...
Your question is about what is culture. You brought up crime.
That wasn't my question. My
It wasn't your
question is,
question.
over the past 30 or 40 years, what are things that have changed
Yeah.
in American or British culture that you feel over the past 200 years before that were unchanging?
Mass migration.